A few years ago, Claire got an unexpected Facebook message. It was from somebody that she hadn't spoke to in over 20 years. Someone who had once been one of her closest friends. The message was short. I don't know if you'll even see this, but I need to say I'm sorry. She felt her stomach tighten, and that memory of that night, the one she had worked so hard to forget, came rushing back. They were teenagers then. Claire had trusted her friend with something deeply personal, a secret she wasn't ready for the world to know. And then, in a moment of betrayal, that trust was shattered. A casual slip of the tongue in front of the wrong person, a joke at her expense, the whispers, the stares, the way her world changed overnight. And now, 2 decades later, her old friend wanted to make things right. As Claire stared at the screen, she had every reason to ignore it. Every reason to let the person carry the weight of their own actions. Wasn't that justice? But there was something else stirring in her, something harder to define, because if she was honest, that night had shaped her. Not just in the ways that hurt, but in the ways that made her stronger. More careful about trust. Yes, but also more attuned to the pain of others. She had spent years defining herself by that moment of betrayal. But now, she was faced with a question. Did she want to keep carrying this unfinished story? Joseph from the Bible understood this weight. Betrayed by his brothers, sold into slavery, left for dead. And then years later, standing in front of them as the second most powerful person in Egypt. Everything in the human playbook said, this is where he gets even. This is the moment for vengeance, for fairness, for justice. But Joseph does something. He reorients the moment. He doesn't pretend his brother's betrayal didn't happen. He doesn't minimize the pain of that betrayal. But he also refuses to let their actions define his future. He says, you intended to harm me, but God intended it for good. This is not a simple everything happens for a reason moment. It's a choice. Joseph chooses to see his story as unfinished. He chooses to step into a larger story of redemption instead of retribution. Because grace doesn't mean that the past didn't happen. Grace means the past doesn't get the last word. Process theology teaches us that God is always luring us forward, inviting us into a future that is bigger than our past failures. Ilia Delio describes God as the energy of love that is constantly unfolding, expanding, and drawing us into greater wholeness. So what if grace isn't just something we receive? What if grace is something we step into? Because here's the thing. Grace isn't passive. Grace moves, grace invites, grace calls us into something more. It's not about forgetting what's been done. It's about refusing to be defined by it. And it's about recognizing that we are not just characters in our past, but co-authors in our future.